Life is not easy. You are not broken. Even though it may feel as though you are, broken means it can't be fixed. However, you can be exactly what you desire to be. And today, I have an amazing guest, LaChelle Wieme, who is an author of Get Out of God's Way. And sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution, letting God get back in your life. Welcome, everybody. Today, I have a very special person. This is a dear friend of mine, and she is here to talk about this amazing book that she wrote called Get Out of God's Way. Now, as you guys know, I was raised a Christian, and I feel like God has been the strongest part of my life. It's what I believe in the strongest. So when I saw that you wrote this book, LaChelle, I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. Everybody needs to hear about this, because how many of us actually get in God's way,
Yeah.
And so this is LaChelle Wieme, and she is the author of Get Out of God's Way. So I want to ask you, first off, LaChelle, what provoked you to write this book? Like, did you feel like inspired? Do you feel like the voice of God came to you and said, write this book,
Yeah, right. I
Or-
mean, yes, kind of, and I wanted to say first, like, you are so special to me. And I just want to say thank you for having me here, Michelle. We have so much beautiful entanglement of things that we're passionate about and who we are being created to be. And it's just a real honor to know you and have you in my life. And I wanted to say first off, before we even dive into this, that there are some people on here who are probably like, I am not religious. And I just want to say, like, neither am I. And I want,
Yeah, me too.
I want to just like reaffirm this, that I definitely feel like sometimes the dogma of Christianity and religion has actually separated us from our creator instead of building the relationship with our creator. And so I just wanted to say that if we are talking about this, I want to just make sure to mention that those of you guys who are listening that are like, have a trauma response, that are triggered by this, that you've had, experience in your life where human beings let you down. Because the human being that got in the way of the relationship between you and your creator has given you this sense of distance or, separation. I just wanted to say, I hear you. I feel you. I'm here for you. And we're just going to talk today about our relationship with our creator. And really what this book did was reaffirm to me the relationship that I have with my creator and the purpose and the calling that I had on my life. And that's really what Get Out of God's Way is all about. It's the ways in which we self-sabotage in order to get in the way of our divine calling, the beautiful purpose, the assignment, the divine assignment that we've been given before we're born. And oftentimes I have let fears and what other people think and overwhelm and doubt and all the things get in the way of me stepping up boldly into the journey, into the life, into the calling that I have. And so it was kind of this moment in time where small decisions kept coming into my path that I leaned into, and then it revealed the next small decision that lined up in my path. And eventually here I was at this place where I was like, okay, I'm equipped. I'm ready. I've gone through all of the muck of the ways that I had been continuing to get into my own way and get into God's way. And it was like, all right, now it's time for you to share your story so that you can help other people get out of their own stinking way. Right. And so kind of a fun story. And that my background, like I have a background in anesthesia. So I have my doctorate in nurse anesthesiology. I was a professor living like my quote unquote dream life. Right. But I never felt fully fulfilled because I realized now going back and dissecting, my past, that all of my professional goals were really to heal past feelings of unworthiness. And so I would add new titles and new degrees and new fancy things into my life in order to essentially feel full, feel loved, feel worthy. And the moment that I started to recognize, right, that that's not where I'm supposed to be, I opened myself up to possibility. I opened myself up to what I consider called the and life, meaning that I can feel challenged and fulfilled and be a present mom and wife. And it didn't have to mean that I had to climb this corporate ladder to do it.
As you're talking, I'm like, I have so many things going off in my head. Right? I'm like, oh my God, I have to address this. You just said something. that you had to do these things to feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
And I had what do you want to call it, like a visitation or a, I don't know, what you like a something that I saw and heard, and in like a meditation state.
Yeah.
And I was told that the reason people feel this way is because it's that missing and aching for that presence of God inside of them. And the reason that they feel that way is because before we were in these, what some people call meat suits,
Yeah. Yep.
you know,
Yep.
we were in that, presence of divine energy
Yeah.
that was just all embracing and all loving. And then we come to earth
Yes.
and it's like dark and
Mhm.
heavy. And so you reach for all these things to make you feel better.
Yep.
But the reality is that we need to be pulling that energy back into the meat suits
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to feel fulfilled. So I wanted to kind of like jump in and tell you that right there really connects with me,
Mhm.
what you went through.
We're born with a veil that separates
Mhm.
us from the spirit world, the part of us that's still connected to source,
Yeah.
in that way. And our journey, I believe, here on earth is to slowly dissolve that veil, to reconnect, right? And I think that once I started to really understand Romans 12:2, which is do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, I started to
Mhm.
recognize, right, like that worthiness, that those patterns of this world are not what is, meant for me. And the moment that I started to
Mhm.
renew my mind, right, to allow for my brain to be connected to source and to reprogram my brain to be in alignment with who I was really created to be, all of a sudden everything started to open up. And that really happened for me when I started my first online business. It was just like, holy crap, like, you mean this is like a thing? Like I can actually do this on my own terms and I can actually impact people the way I want to. And it doesn't matter what kind of office or title or, whatever I have, like I could do this. And it just opened me up. But that also meant that I had to go on this massive, massive personal development journey, because at the
Mhm.
time that I started my business, Michelle, I was terrified of being seen. I was terrified of being judged. I mean, I can go back to an incident that I remember very vividly of being in anesthesia school. And one of my classmates called me up and she's like, "Hey, LaChelle, I just want to know you to know that everybody hates you in class. And it's just because you always show up and like do these really great presentations and you're making the rest of us look bad. And so I just wanted you to know that, like, nobody liked you." And I remember going to class the next day, like, here I am, this freaking 26, 27-year-old woman. Like, what the hell? Am I in seventh grade again? But I resorted back to that feeling of unworthiness. And I remember not
Mhm.
talking to anybody. And I remember just sitting there thinking, like, oh my gosh, is this true? Like, and I started playing small and I started deluding myself. And it's like all of that crap was still stuck there. And I had to get over that in order to show up in my business. And I had to be okay with posting on social media and knowing that people were going to talk about me. And I had to start to embrace the fact that God has given me certain passions, certain skills. The reason I was kicking butt in anesthesia school is because I was good at presenting. I was good at speaking. I was good at teaching. And
Mhm.
damn it, like I needed to start to own that, right? But it was a
Mhm.
journey of me starting to slowly tear away some of the patterns of this world and the things that happen to us that form beliefs and form commands and form programming inside of our subconscious. And so, long story short, I was building my business alongside of my career, and I got to a point in 2022 where I was like, I am so done. I am so ready. I started to really allow myself to raise my vibration so that I could be
Mhm.
open to solutions that could pop into my mind, right? Because you and I both know that when we stay in the frequency of the problem, we stay in this frequency of the problem. Meanwhile, the solution is
Right.
at a different frequency already existing. And I just needed to raise my vibration. All of a sudden, I had conversations that were like, oh my gosh, have you considered this? Have you considered this? Have you considered this? And I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. And I was like, okay, let's do this. And I quit my job. And then all of a sudden, because I trusted, because I started to lean in, literally like a domino effect, things started to fall into place, things started to happen. And I was introduced to a person from a coach that I was working with. And she's like, hey, I think LaChelle would be a really great speaker for this event. You should meet her. So I met this guy. He's a famous actor actually in California, and he was going to put on this women's empowerment event. And I'm like, holy crap, like this dude's talking to me. And he's like, met me, and he's like, I really think that you'd be a great fit. I would love to have you come to California in May and speak for us. And this is in February. And he's like, and by the way, I've already filled the entire lineup. So I'm making a spot for you. So like,
wow.
holy crap, right? Like, how is this happening?
Well, what was the subject you were going to speak on?
So I was, he didn't even give me a title. Like, he just loved like what I was up to. And he's like, we can flesh it out later. Okay. So this is what's so cool.
Wow.
Is that then his secretary called me, like, I don't know, a couple of days later. So remember, this is February, right? The event is in May. And she's like, so LaChelle, do you need a table for a book or anything? And I had already published a book that I had co-authored like a couple months before that. And so the interesting part is that my spirit paused. And she said, do you need a table for a book? And I said, can I get back to you on that? Like, the book that I had published didn't even cross my mind. It was like this pause. And like my response was, can I get back to you on that? And I immediately called a couple of friends who had published books. And I was like, hey, here's the deal. I'm going to be speaking in May. It's February. Is it even possible to get a book written and published and in print by May? And they're like, yep, but you better get your shit together, essentially.
Wow.
Right? So I'm like, all right. And I literally went to a retreat in Cabo, was in high vibes, came back, cleared my schedule, and I wrote my book in 6 days.
What? You wrote it in 6 days?
6 days. So God literally, I believe, like downloaded everything that I needed. I had, before I went to Cabo to that retreat, I had like kind of outlined an idea of what I wanted to say in like the bigger context of it. Like I had some idea, but I literally went to my daughter's basketball tournament on a Sunday afternoon, got home, put my, stuff away, got my computer out, and I wrote from probably 5 a.m. till 8, 9 o'clock at night, every day that week. By Friday afternoon, I was finished.
Wow.
And that damn book was in hands by May 1st and at my table the third week in May at that retreat, or that conference in California. And it was like, oh my gosh. So here's the point, you guys, is that when you stop getting in God's way, when you stop getting in your own way, when you allow yourself to raise your vibration so that the right conversations, the right people, the right ideas, the right just downloaded messages can come to you, it doesn't have to be hard. We force things so much because we stay in these vibrations of feeling like we have to do it all ourselves. And so I needed to get out of my own way. I needed to get out of his way. I needed to allow him to work through me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so guess what? That's what my topic was for the conference. It was essentially like the bones of my book.
The bones of your book. Wow. That's amazing. But I'm sure and I know you, and I've known you for a while, and every time that I've ever spoke with you, you've always had such a very positive vibe. Mm-hmm. And I know that there were some challenges in your past, but I think it was before I ever met you. And so you've always had this very different way of, kind of a go-getter attitude and a very positive way of looking at things. Mm-hmm. So I find that most people, they can sit here and they can watch your TikToks all day, your Instagram posts, your Facebook posts, your YouTube videos, and they can read your books, but they can't seem to apply it. Mm. So I'm curious, because you did come from a space where you felt very insecure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Before I knew you, but there was a place. The same thing with me. I came from a place of a lot of insecurities, mm-hmm. not feeling good enough. But I'm curious, what was it that made that shift with you? How did you get there? How did you get to the other side? Because you've used a lot of terms here that a lot of people really don't know how to. They may know the definition of it. Like you said, raise your vibration.
Yeah.
Um, they may know what that means, but they don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You know
Let's
what I
dive
mean?
into it. I love this because my book is a very practical read. Like there are, I actually have an entire workbook that I'm still offering for free that goes through it with you so that you can do the work alongside of it. And I want everything to be my goal as a coach, my goal as a speaker, my goal as a mentor is for you to not need me. My goal is to empower you with the tools that you can go off and create the ripple effect on your own, right? And so I think that there's a reason that I started my book. There's a reason that the very first module inside of my, the modules that I have inside of my coaching program is the power of choice. And I feel like no matter what happens to us, we get to choose what we do with that. And I feel like once you can really own that power, we're all given this beautiful, beautiful gift of free will. We literally get to choose every single moment what we're going to do with our thoughts. And our thoughts, you had asked about the vibes, right? Our thoughts are what create our feelings. Our feelings are what create our actions, and our actions are what recreate our results, right? Now, here's the cool thing, and I refer to this a lot. There's a copy of this in my book, in the workbook of the emotional vibrational scale. MIT scientists have been able to actually measure the frequency or how fast the electrons are rotating in your body, in your atoms of your cells, when you have certain feelings. And so if you're like, how do I raise my vibration? You control your feelings. How do you control your feelings? You control your thoughts. Okay. And so if I am feeling like hopeless and helpless and feeling, just defeated, and shame and guilt are the very bottom of that, by the way, 20 hertz, super, super slow, super low vibes. If I'm feeling that, and if I'm thinking thoughts that lead to those feelings, then that's why I'm going to be in the low vibes, right? But if I can think thoughts that create feelings of appreciation and freedom and joy and love, I raise my vibration, right? And so understanding that little tiny bit of science and understanding that our thoughts are what create our feelings and our feelings are what create our vibration, you get to use your superpower of free will and choice to get yourself back into that high vibe by the thoughts that you choose to think. Now, I know that sounds like super simple, right? And you're just like, but LaChelle, you don't know what happened to me. Totally. And that's so funny, Michelle, you're hilarious because I actually call myself a professional butt buster. It's like, what are the butts that are getting in the way of you living out your best life, right? And butts, like, but you don't know what happened to me. And I'm just going to give you a little example because I believe with every single cell of my body that everything at every moment is perfectly perfect. Everything at every moment is perfectly perfect. You right now and how you are feeling and what you're experiencing is perfectly perfect because everything is working out for our good. Okay. So let me give you an example. And just to really quickly digress here, I still struggle sometimes, but I have to use the tools that I have, right? So I just spent some time this last weekend on a trip with somebody that, well, it's my mom. I love her. I'm just going to say she's never going to listen to this. My mom is a glass half empty kind of gal. She's always been that way. She's been super insecure. I love her. If you ever listen to this, Mom, I love you. But like, she's got a lot of trash talk in her head. I found myself getting sucked into that energy a little bit. And I had to make a decision of what I was going to do, whether that means like just some little healthy boundaries to allow myself to use some tools that I have with frequency and different things so that I could make myself, back up again. And once I got home, I had to work on some things because it's easy to get sucked back into that. But growing up, you asked me like how I'm so positive and stuff. And I really think that it was a conscious choice. I had my grandpa, who was my mom's dad, in my life. And when he was, relatively young and I was 12 years old, he had a virus attack his heart and he needed a heart transplant. And this is back in the early 90s. So that was like a relatively new technology. I think he was like number 38 at the of Minnesota to have this procedure done. And unfortunately, it didn't go great. He got an infection post-operatively, and he ended up with this infection that essentially created a life for the remainder of his life of being in a wheelchair. Okay.
Mm.
He was mad at life. He felt like he was jaded. He felt like life wasn't fair. And he was kind of an angry man who didn't ever spread love, appreciation to anybody around him.
Right.
Meanwhile, I had another role model in my life, was my grandma Max, and she was my dad's mom. And this woman was unfortunately exposed to a lot of really hard lessons. So when she was 10, her dad died of tuberculosis. 6 months later, her mom died of the flu. They had to, her siblings had to move to California to live with their grandparents from Minnesota. Her asthma got bad. She had to go back to Minnesota to stay with a different aunt and uncle that essentially didn't treat her very well. They had lost their own son to polio. They didn't cope well. So basically they neglected, ate, and possibly abused my grandma. Didn't let her go to school, didn't let her leave the farm. Really, really hard life. She went off, joined the Navy, met my grandpa, had 7 kids. 2 of them passed away. One of them was born with a hole in his heart, died when he was 4 in surgery unexpectedly. The other one was hit by a car. She had every single reason to be pissed at the world. She had every reason to have a chip on her shoulder. She had every reason to feel like life wasn't fair.
Mm-hmm.
My grandpa got the heart of a 28-year-old man and was given a second chance at life.
And he didn't.
And he was pissed.
Yeah.
So I watched these 2 people in my life, and I decided which one of them do I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we always have a choice.
Mm-hmm. We
always have a choice. And, if you go back, this is going to get deep. So Michelle, your audience may or may not be familiar with this thought process, but I'm just going to say that in the quantum world, in the quantum universal laws, there's a law of cause and effect, right? So we are always first cause, meaning that the things that we have in our lives are as a result of something of cause energetically. Okay. If you believe that we all are given this beautiful assignment before we're born, there's a thought process that I personally subscribe to, that we, along with God, along with our higher self, get to decide what that journey looks like. And that while we're still in this beautiful safety and love of heaven, of the source light and energy, it feels like, yeah, I'll sign up for that. Sure. Bring that on. Yep. I got that. Yep. You want to, make me have to go through my childhood loss. Yep. I can handle that. I can handle that. You want me to go through this? Yep. I can handle that. And we literally choose the beautiful lessons for our soul's involvement before we're born.
I agree with that.
And so if you think that, if you can subscribe to that thought, then you indeed are first cause, that you chose you chose the lessons, you chose the journey. And that doesn't mean that we have to get mad at us and shame ourselves. We get to say, damn, I'm an evolved soul, and shit, I am going to get through this.
Mm-hmm.
I love Jesus and I swear a little, just so you know. I'm sorry. But
yeah,
it's like, I want you to just give yourself some grace and recognize that no matter what you're going through right now, everything is perfectly perfect. Everything is perfectly perfect. And you get to take this moment and you get to choose right now what you're going to do with it.
Right. It's so funny you said this, because this is exactly how I believe. And this is exactly what I teach. And what really kind of rang with me is, this part about the quantum stuff that you're talking about. There was a point in my life when I recognized that, when I realized that there's certain things that are, it's already planned. Okay. It's like, here's a script and this is your life. Mm-hmm. And you can play this role the best you can and be the very best actress, or you can stumble over it and not really try and kind of screw up the play, but the play still goes on. There was a point in which I I came to this realization that I was fighting against the grain.
Yeah.
And I would hold on to things that were not meant for me to hold on to
Yep.
because there was something even better in front.
Yep.
And I had to learn how to realize that these challenges were things that I had to learn how to surf versus fight.
Yes. Yes.
And yeah, and I've had people come to me and say, it's not that you're removed from the challenges because they're there for you.
Mhm.
It's just that you ride them like you ride a surfboard.
Yep.
And and I really, thought about that and I was like, wow, that's really interesting.
Mhm.
Because I have to sit down and think, okay, how am I going to handle this?
Mhm.
What am I going to do with
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
And what is going to be the best direction that's going to serve me?
Mhm.
And there's, writing it like a surfboard doesn't mean acceptance.
Mhm.
But in some areas it can be
Mhm.
acceptance. It
Yeah.
just depends.
Yeah.
It just means how are you going, like you said, how are you going to handle this?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that some people kind of feel like, well, if I don't do something about it,
Mhm.
well, there's a lot of things you can do
Mhm.
that can, you know, okay, so you're having some financial problems. Let's look at this and see what kind of options are in front of you. What are
Yes.
you good at? What can you do right now?
Right.
People get caught up in the past,
Mhm.
they get caught up in the future, and then they get caught up in
Yeah.
who they believe
Yeah.
that they are and not
All of
try
that.
to create something
Yes.
different within themselves,
Oh my gosh, yes. All of those things. Like, oh
Yeah,
my gosh,
yeah,
where do I unpack all of that, right?
yeah.
I feel like everything in our life, again, I'm just gonna repeat this
Mhm.
over and over again so that you guys
Yeah.
can hear this. Like everything is perfectly perfect. Like
Mm,
you are given this specific divine moment as a beautiful masterclass in which you get to learn from. That the things that are in front of you are this beautiful mirror of who you are inside that needs to be healed, right? So I literally just had one of my coaching sessions before you and I started recording,
mhm,
and it was so cool because her consciousness brought forth this exact moment in time that she needed to heal. And because of what she experienced yesterday that triggered this feeling, her consciousness was able to then pinpoint a moment a year ago that needed
mhm,
to be healed at this moment, right? So just
mhm,
acknowledging, right, that everything is working for us. This is just tiny little arrows that are helping us to navigate the beautiful lessons and the refinement that we're meant to have. And I think that
mhm,
one of the things that you mentioned too that I want to kind of acknowledge, right, is
mhm.
that we just need to get on the wave, right? And I think
Right.
that part of the reason that we find ourselves in low vibes and for those of you guys who are kind of new to this, right? When I think of low vibes, I literally feel heavier. And
Yeah.
it's so crazy because my thoughts, my words, right, create
Mhm.
the feelings. And like I just feel heavy.
You
But when
feel
I think of
heavy, yes.
high vibes, I think of like almost like this floaty, like this just like I'm ready to tackle the world.
Mhm,
We take ourselves so damn seriously. And the more that we associate ourselves with this world, with the low vibes of the physical, instead of acknowledging that we are indeed both physical and spiritual at the same time. And I love how, like, this is the analogy, like, I want to keep my feet grounded, but and my head in the clouds, right?
mhm,
Because when I can allow my head to stay in the clouds, it helps me to remember and to look at this as this fun, giant experiment. I kind of think about this like how many of you guys have watched American Ninja Warrior, right? It's like the one
mhm,
rare show that my family and I can all agree on. They're just in this game and there's obstacles that they have to get to and then they face and then they get to the next one and it's just a freaking game.
mhm.
That's what this experience is in life. Stop taking ourselves so stinking seriously and remember that you are not in this alone.
Right.
You literally have the divine within you. God is in you. We're reminded that of scripture. People that are spiritual understand that we are all one, the universal law of oneness. We are all one. We are connected to source. We are connected with universal intelligence. Everything, the same intelligence that Albert Einstein had access to, you have access to. The same intelligence that Thomas Edison had access to, you have access to. You have divine consciousness inside of you. You have spirit guides that are walking alongside of you, that are guiding you. You have your highest self, which is the part of you who's still connected to source, who's already knows everything you've been through and already knows how the play is going to turn out, who's helping guide you. Stop taking yourself so seriously. Give yourself permission to get your head in the clouds a little bit and tap into the universal guidance that is helping you get through each day. I mean, it's crazy because, Michelle, like, the more that I stay in high vibes, the more freedom I have, the more appreciation, the more joy I have in what I do, the more success I've had in business, because I've allowed myself to stay and tap into the people and the ideas and the downloads and the guidance in the supernatural realm that want to help me. But the more that I stay stuck down here in this low vibe of feeling like I have to do it myself, to get stuck in the masculine of doing, and sticking to my to-do list and trying to figure it all out on my own, the more burnt out I get, the more frustrated I get, the harder life seems. And the moment that I just like submit to, okay, what should I do? And every single day, legit, I teach this to my clients. You can tap into source to ask yes or no questions and get yes or no answers. It's easy. Any of us can do it. And so I literally wake up like, okay, this is what I think I should have on my to-do list. Should I do this? Yes, no. Should I do this? Yes, no. Should I put this on my to-do list for tomorrow? No. And then I literally just allow myself to take one tiny step at a time, divided by the divine. And then I release the control and I allow myself to just pretend like I'm in freaking American Ninja Warrior. All right, next obstacle. All right, I got this.
I have to ask you this question. You said I asked the question, yes or no.
Yeah.
So how do you get your answer? Are you like throwing a tarot card down?
Nope,
Are you scrying, or what are you doing?
So what I do, there's a couple of different ways that I teach this. The one of the most simple is to allow your body to tell you. Okay, so let me give
kinetic.
What was that?
Kinetic.
Yes.
Or kinesthetic. How do you say it?
Yeah, kinesthetic. Yeah.
Kinesthetic,
So I feel like, so this is how I'm going to describe this. And so, because here's the thing, like, all of my things that I do have this secret sauce of brain science, quantum physics, and scripture, right? So like, we're going to bring all this together. So your mind is divided, and you know this, you teach this, is conscious and subconscious, right? And you know that our conscious thought is our thinking, it's our analyzing, it's our decision making, it's our judging, and that's conscious. And that's only running about 5% of the time. Right. The rest of the time, 95% of the time, my subconscious is running the show. My subconscious is also the type, or the part of my brain that is moving my hands without me thinking about it. It's what's making me smile when I talk. It's what's making my heart beat. It's digesting my breakfast. And the subconscious is what's connected to source. And so when I can recognize that source intelligence, God within me, is connected to my subconscious, and my subconscious is what's running my body, I then can accept that I can literally speak to divine through my body, right? Okay.
So tell me what you do.
Yes. Okay. So first thing is, you have to understand that we need to allow for our conscious mind to be excused from the table. Because oftentimes we will try to get our logic in here, and that's not the part of our brain we're tapping into. So excuse your logic from the table and just listen to your body. Okay. So one of the things that I have you do is just to ask yourself, does this feel expansive or restrictive? Okay. And I have to not think about it, but tap into how my body feels, right? To me, expansiveness feels like literally I can feel my spirit expanding and getting bigger. I feel like I can breathe bigger. I feel like I literally am embodying a bigger space energetically. Oftentimes, because I've been doing this long enough, I literally can get full-on body shivers, tingles throughout my whole body. That's a yes. Boom. It feels expansive, tingling, This is a yes, right? A no for me feels restrictive. This is where I literally feel like somebody's sitting on my chest. I can't breathe as deeply. It feels like somebody's taking my spirit and shoving it into a box. It feels like my heart is heavy. It feels like sometimes I get this like knot in my stomach. It just feels ick. That
Mhm.
is a no. Okay. And so get your logic out of it and just tap into your brain through your subconscious and
Mhm.
allow your body to tell you. Okay. Now,
Mhm.
this is where some people get tripped up, and I just want to kind of throw this little asterisk in here. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes there are going to be things that you need to say yes to that are literally going to take you to the next level. So let's bring out some like old school Nintendo, right? Like we're going to get to the next level of Super Mario Brothers right now because we do something. It's like this
Mhm.
quantum leap. It happens when you listen to the expansiveness and you recognize that there is this little like butterflies in your stomach.
Mhm.
Butterflies sometimes will trick us into thinking it's a no. So you have to lean into the expansiveness. And if you recognize that this feels expansive, but I'm really nervous, then that is a hell yes, do it today, because that is going to get you to the next level of Super Mario Brothers. That is going to get you to the next level. That is the breakthrough that you've been looking for, where the domino will start to fall.
Mhm.
Okay. And then I use other things like muscle testing that also confirm. And sometimes when you're just learning, it's like sometimes it's okay to ask a couple times, like, God, are you sure? Are you sure you want me to do this? Are you sure? And I promise you guys, like the more that you do this, the more you're going to trust it and trust yourself, because sometimes things will happen. Like I'll be like, okay, should I do this? Yes. And then I do it. I'm like, that did not turn out the way I thought it was gonna. Like, what the heck, right? And then I'm like, but oh yeah, okay, God, but you knew that if I knew that this was going to turn out this way, I wouldn't have done this. And therefore, I wouldn't have gotten this, or I wouldn't have learned this, or I wouldn't have met this person. So I've just learned to trust, even if it doesn't turn out the way I think it's gonna, I've learned to trust it 100% of the time. And
Mhm.
it always will lead me where I'm supposed to go.
Do you see that as something that's supernatural, or do you feel like it's just connective?
I believe it's supernatural.
Okay. So if it's supernatural, I
Hmm.
guess, let me redefine,
Yeah.
because people may not understand. When I say connective, I think of, you're connected to source, so source is
Mm.
you, and so your body's going to
Yeah. Yeah.
respond to that,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
what you're telling me.
Yeah.
Supernatural to me feels like it's something outside of you.
Mm.
And so,
I
uh,
see. Okay. So,
so like
yeah.
an angel could be
Okay. So I guess
influencing the situation.
yeah, okay, good. So this is what I'm gonna say to that. Okay.
Okay.
Um, I 100% just believe in this process. Okay.
Hmm.
I also recognize that sometimes people's beliefs will prevent them from accepting. I
Hmm.
believe that God is in me. I believe that there is no outside God, that God is in me, and that there is no disconnection, right? So to answer your thing, like I guess it is, kinetic in the sense that I believe that there is no separation. There is no God outside of me, right? God
Hmm.
is in me, inside of me. Um, but if that is a concept that is hard for you and you believe in, this big man in the sky,
Hmm.
then allow that to just be the entry point into which you can accept that he is trying to guide you. Whether you believe that he's in you or whether you believe that he is outside of you, he is
Hmm.
guiding you regardless. Okay. And I don't want that
Yeah.
to be a block, a but that gets in the way.
Well, but
Um,
some people believe, have a real strong belief
mhm,
structure in
yeah.
angel influence.
Mhm,
And
yeah.
so do you think that, with some people
Yeah.
who have a struggle with that internal belief or that connective
Yeah.
belief,
Yeah.
that it could, that they could say, um, God send me an angel
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
show
Yeah.
me or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Uh,
Totally. Um, yeah. So it's such a tricky question. I know that you're like, this is not that hard of a question, but it is because I believe in the universal law of oneness,
mhm,
right? So that means that in my belief structure, that all of us are connected in consciousness. That means that my guides, that my angels, that God, that you, that me, that the person who I don't like that I met at the grocery store yesterday are all connected, because God is in me, God is in you. we are all connected as one, right? So to me, there's no separation in that.
Right.
But I
But other
also
people
do,
don't believe that way.
right.
Right.
And so I very much do subscribe to the fact that, right, like whether you believe that you are one with an angel or whether or not an angel is separate than you, an angel is your spirit guides, your ancestors, your higher consciousness, the part of you who because I believe that our consciousness is, we're split into this like little experience that we're experiencing in this physical realm
Mhm.
right now. So there's
Mhm.
still a part of me that is part of the bigger whole.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
so regardless, there are supernatural forces that I cannot see that are guiding me at all times.
Okay. Okay. Absolutely. So a lot of people, so I wasn't trying to trick you or push you
Yeah,
into a corner
no,
or
it's
anything like
it's
that.
a
It's
hard
just that,
concept. It's abstract for
yeah,
sure.
some
Yeah.
people, some people believe a certain way,
Yeah.
and the reality is, okay, let's look at it like this. The reality is that this is a pink mug, okay?
Yeah. Mhm.
And I can say that it's designed with a heat control or ice control element on the inside of it. So if I put coffee in here, it'll stay hot, or if I put something with ice in it, it'll stay cold.
Yeah.
Um, and I can tell you that this is what it is.
Mhm.
However, somebody can come along and they can say, no,
Mhm.
I have to continue to refill it. I have to dump it out and put it back in and put the ice cubes in here to keep it cold, or dump it out and put new coffee in. They can they can even say that it's used for something completely different.
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean that this is not something else. It just means that
Mhm. Yeah.
sometimes somebody cannot see something for what it is.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
And so my goal has always been, regardless how you believe, it all
Mhm.
comes to the same thing. It holds water.
Mhm.
It holds fluid. Period. Okay?
Mhm.
You can ice it up, or you can heat it up, or you can believe it's only for heat, or you can believe it's only for cold, or you believe that you have to throw ice cubes in it, or you believe that you have to throw it in the microwave. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. The
Mhm.
reality is it's a thermos. Period. And that thermos can be used in many different ways. And so, yes, it has the ability to do a lot of different things that a lot of people don't realize.
Mhm.
But if you use it on a regular basis, you end up discovering more about it, right?
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
oh, it does this.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
have I have a air fryer, and I just
Mhm.
got a Instapot.
Yeah.
And as I've used these things, I end up discovering more of what I can do with it. Oh, I can do this with it. Oh, I can do this with it.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes um, I want to explain to people that everything you're saying is accurate, but just because you may not understand it, or you may not be able to buy into it, or you're not ready for it,
Yep.
doesn't mean that you can't take the concepts of understanding that the message is there. And okay, oh, I'm not really sure how to, if I believe in the whole quantum science stuff, I believe that, Jesus Christ is my personal savior and I have
Yeah.
to get saved and blah, blah, blah. Okay,
Mhm.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Believe
Yeah.
in that. That's okay. Believe in that,
Yeah.
but still
Yeah.
understand it's still a thermos. Um, and so all I'm saying is that sometimes people have to understand that you can look at it very simply, or you can look at it very complexly.
Mhm.
Either way, it's still the same thing,
Mhm.
period.
Yeah, I mean, there's been lots of just breadcrumbs, right? I
Mhm,
feel like
mhm,
this whole, I mean, it's interesting. So it's probably been 4 years already that I was
mhm,
introduced to some technology that I have that I use that literally can pick up my 3 most out of range emotions that I've been overexpressing and the one that I've been under repressing. And it can give me, with an algorithm, the exact musical notes that I need to listen to balance out my out of range emotions. Okay.
mhm.
And I can send and receive energetic frequencies from this device and from the software. And I remember, like, I'm like, yeah, I understand. Like, I believe in prayer, and I believe that I can pray for you. And I believe, I believe in God, even though I can't see him. But I needed to understand the science behind how the hell this software worked, because if I was going to
I'm the
tell
same way.
anybody about it, I need to freaking figure this out. Right. And it
Right.
led me down this rabbit hole. And as a scientist, again, like, I have a background in anesthesia. I have a background as a professor, as a researcher, and I needed to understand. And holy crap, like, the more that I have dove into quantum physics, the more that all of this makes sense, the more that I understand God more, the more that I understand scripture and I look at scripture differently. But I had to start somewhere, and I had to just have this thirst of, Lord, speak to me in a way that I can understand now and lead me where you want to go. And I'll ask all the time when I'm praying or when I'm reading scripture, is um, this how I'm supposed to understand this? And you guys that are, in faith with me, that it's considered the living word. Why is it the living word? Because he reveals to us the meaning of it each and every time we digest it. It's
And
living
that could
in
change.
speaking every single time. And so I've gotten new things out of the exact same scripture because he keeps revealing to me different things. And so the point is that allowing your relationship with the divine, allowing him to just guide you and nudge you. And I got to tell you that little tiny software led me down this rabbit hole that opened my eyes and gave me opportunities to meet different people. The more that I realized, Michelle, that even quantum physicists do not understand quantum physics.
That is
That I am
true.
not meant to know everything, because we're not meant, do not lean on your own understanding. And we have to remind ourselves that once, we are done in this physical plane, that things are going to make sense again. But right now there's a veil that's separating us, because it's part of the process to bring ourselves back home, essentially, is how I
I
feel.
agree.
Like, the
I
more that
agree.
I've gotten to know things, the closer I felt to God, and the more homesick I've gotten, the more that I realize that I'm literally just, you've probably heard the analogy of the Statue of David, right? And literally, it's like the Statue of David was just chiseled out of stone until he was revealed to himself. That's how I feel this life on earth is that I'm just literally chiseling my way through tiny lessons, through choices, through accepting breadcrumbs to get myself back to who I am in perfection, in spirit. And it's just a journey. It's just a game. And I don't understand everything, and I won't understand everything, but I'm
Now,
having fun learning.
going back to your book for a second, which
Yeah.
I know this is what your book is about.
Yeah.
But what do you feel like the overall theme of, like, why did you title it Get Out of God's Way? And
Yeah.
what do you think
So
the overall theme is here?
yeah. So I'm just gonna say real quickly that I wrote this book now. It's a year and a half ago.
hmm
And much of what we've talked about today are things that I didn't even understand then.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So my book is in much simpler form than what we talked
Oh,
about today.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because
Well,
I'm on a journey.
have you thought
Yeah.
about actually writing another book to
Oh,
expand on
absolutely. I
that?
have
Yeah.
two of them that I want to write. One of them, and I'm just going to put it out because when you speak it, right, it's everything is started in thought. One book I want to write is all about our butts. So, what are the biggest butts that are holding us back from being able to really be the highest version of ourselves? And then the second one is I want to write a book that's really highlighting universal laws, especially for those of us who are believers, so that we can understand that they don't have to be separate things, that God is the creator of the universe and universal laws are things that he created, and God is a God of
Mhm.
order. So how do all of these things come together, and how can we appreciate them in this life to help this? Can I just really quickly say, and I talk about this in the book, but Michelle, have you seen the book, the movie Finding Nemo?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, cool. So there's a really great scene in the movie that I use this analogy all the time. So Dory, one of our favorite
Mhm.
characters, right, is like, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. And she's kind of like, me in the sense, like, just have a good attitude. But dang it, she just keeps swimming. Like, that's got to be tiring. And she's never going to make it to Sydney if she just keeps swimming. Okay.
Mhm.
At one point in the movie, her and Marlin meet Crush the turtle. And
Mhm.
Crush was like, hey, dudes, all you need to do is get into the EAC and it's going to shoot you right into Sydney, right? They just needed to get into the current that was going
Mhm.
to take them without any more effort of their own, shooting them right into their destination. But they had to be willing and open to listen to Crush the Turtle. So this is where this conversation is going to go right now. This is your Crush the Turtle moment, guys. This is where
Mhm.
you get to say, you know what? Yes, I have been swimming. Yes, I'm tired. Yes, I've tried to have a good attitude, but dang it, I know that God has an easier way for me to get there. And it's literally just allowing ourselves to get into the current. And that's what it means to work with universal law, right? So that we don't have to fight against it. We don't have to do it all on our own in this physical way. We can allow for him to shoot us to where we want to go. Okay. The book is really based off of the three things that I've noticed that all successful people have in common. All right. And this is in addition to just making choices, right? And not allowing themselves to become victims to the circumstances, right? So they're like, okay, now the first thing is desire. They recognize the desire that has been placed in their hearts. They recognize that it was placed on there by God, by their divine, and they lean into it instead of shoving it down, pretending it's not there. So many times I think that fine, Michelle, is my least favorite four-letter F word because people will live their life fine, right? I'm fine. My job is fine. My marriage is fine. My body is fine. When really it isn't. They have a desire for better, but they shove it down. So successful people lean into their desire. Number two is they make the decision. Now, this is a shift in energy. This is a shift in consciousness. This is a moment in time where they're like, come hell or high water, I'm going to figure this out. This is, I'm going to meet the people. I'm going to learn the things. I'm going to make it happen. There are no excuses. I'm going to freaking figure this out. This is what happens a lot of times when people hit their rock bottom. Let's not hit your rock bottom, guys. Let's just make the damn decision to make today the start of this and like let no more excuses, no more buts. Okay. And then the third thing that successful people do is they act, they implement, they get into action. Now, you guys can see that I have a lot of books around me, right? If I implemented everything I learned in that book, my life would be amazing. But oftentimes we don't implement. So successful people do something with what they learn. They make the decision and they execute. Okay. Now, that sounds great. And you're like, yeah, LaChelle, I totally get that. But, right? And remember, I'm a butt buster. So I want to make sure that you guys have the tools to get over the things that are most likely going to hold you up. And I recognize that the three things that people are oftentimes held back by is a number one, lack of clarity, number two, lack of confidence, and three, lack of consistency. Right. And so, lack of clarity. I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know how I'm supposed to show up. I don't know what this looks like. I don't know what step I should take. And so much of that confusion is tying you up. God is not the God of confusion. And so I teach people how to discover their purpose and their calling, how to implement that in their life by design with the business and the life that they want, to be able to take the clarity that God is trying to give you, right? And actually do something with it. The second thing is confidence. Oh my gosh, like we all have shit that holds us back. We all have limiting beliefs that prevent us from owning and stepping in and making those decisions. We all have fears that hold us back. We all have money mindset garbage that is keeping us from charging more or executing the dang thing. We all have that stuff that's holding us back. And so I want to give you guys really practical tips on how to recognize those limiting beliefs, how to recognize those fears, how to recognize the money mindset issues that are holding you back, and then how to reprogram your brain so that you can start to actually overcome those things. And then the third one is consistency. I want you to implement, but so oftentimes we let things like overwhelm. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, Michelle, but it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. I have so much to do that I don't even know where to start, right? Or I know I need to reach out to this person in my business, but my couch is feeling really good and I don't really feel like getting up, right? So we let lack of motivation or fear. Oh my God, I could never send this message or I could never charge that because I'm not ready or I need to take this another class or get the certification or what if it's not perfect or what if I don't give them results or blah, blah, blah. And we allow things like that to hold us back. So I teach you very practical things about how to delegate, how to get organized, how to automate some of your stuff, how to create habits for success, how to overcome lack of motivation. So I've literally created this, it's almost like the first version of my butts book, right? It's like, here's what I see successful people do. Here are the things, here are the butts that I see hold people back. And then I give you practical things that you can do to overcome those so that you can start to lean into your desire, so that you can start to make the decisions and you can execute and you can look back at your life and be like, oh my gosh, I did it. And, Michelle, people oftentimes will come to me and they're like, I don't really understand like what I'm supposed to do. What am I meant to do? How do all of these pieces of the puzzle come together? And, I feel like that is my purpose, is to help you live yours. It's like I have been given this unique gift to see puzzle pieces and I know how they all come together. And if I had to like summarize it the best that I can, I'm going to utilize some scripture in this because I feel like the parable of the servants is the best example. And so sometimes, depending on which version you read, it might be the parable of the servants, it might be the parable of the talents, it might be the parable of the coins. But let me give you the gist of this, okay?
I love this story, by the way.
Yeah, good. So in this story, right, the master, he's going to leave. And before he leaves, he gives 3 of his servants a different number of coins or talents. And he leaves, right? Now, 2 of the servants take their 5 coins or 5 talents and their 3 coins or 3 talents, and they reinvest them. And this master comes back and they're like, look, master, I took what you gave me and I expanded it. I made more. I invested it. I re-expanded the kingdom, right? And he's like, well done, good and faithful servant. And then the third guy, he's given a couple of coins, a couple of talents. And what does he do? He buries them in the sand because he doesn't want to lose them. He's afraid. And so he buries them. And the master comes back and the servant's like, okay, master, look, I didn't lose what you gave me. And he's like, goodness, you could have at least put it in a bank and gotten interest. Like, we're no better off than we were when I left. And it's like my mission in this world, and I get emotional when I think about this, is like, I'm like standing next to you and I'm like, give me your shovel. No, you're not burying those talents. Like, you are placed in this lifetime on purpose for a purpose. Everything is perfectly perfect. You, whoever's listening to this, you have specific strengths that nobody else has in a combination that nobody else has. You have experiences and skills that no one else has. You have gotten through things that no one else has. And the combination has been perfectly placed for you and your calling. And I don't want you to bury your talents. I don't want you to allow fine to be what is written on your headstone. I want you to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. I want you to know that you used every ounce of what you've been given to make the biggest difference in this world, because I know in my bones that every single one of us have a beautiful plan, a beautiful purpose, a beautiful calling that is waiting to be expressed. And I just don't want us to hold ourselves back anymore. Your gifts, your talent, your experience is exactly what the world needs. And somebody is praying for that help right now. So no more burying your shit. Own it.
I love
refine
it. I love it. And what the last thing that you said, your very specific talents or something that somebody needs.
Mm-hmm.
I hear a lot of people say to me that they have imposter syndrome, where they get up and they see somebody like you or somebody like me, and they're like, oh, but I'm never going to be as good as her, so I can't do this, that, or the other, right? And one of the things that I try to explain to people is that in every level that you're at, no matter how high you climb, there's always going to be somebody above you. There's always going to be somebody below you. And your special talent could be for somebody who hasn't even reached the level you have reached.
100%. Yes.
And, you may not be as high as LaChelle, but there's somebody that you can influence because there's something you've learned that's going to help that person. So I absolutely agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
So as long as you're sitting here thinking that the person's better than you, You're never going to get anywhere because there's always going to be somebody above you, somebody better than you, and
Yeah.
there's going to be somebody below you. So focus on who you are right now.
Every single one. And the thing is, like, my podcast is called the Spiral Up Podcast. My coaching and my consulting is Spiral Up. This is why. As we spiral up, you notice that we are going around in a circle, but we're going upwards. And every single time you hit a new level, you're going to bump up against old bruises, old programming, old fears, right? The difference is going to be is that you're going to see it, you're going to recognize it faster, and you're going to pivot faster. Why? Because of the experience that you've had below. Now, this is a spiral, meaning that sometimes things happen and we spiral back down, but we're always going to go in motion, always. And so knowing that every single time that I do something new, I'm going to bump up against old fears and old bruises. I feel nervous. I have an appearance that I have to do here this afternoon. I'm nervous about it. But I know that every single, and this is something, you guys, that I want you to hear me say, that every single human being has fear. Every single one. It doesn't matter if you're thinking about Beyonce or Oprah or Elon Musk. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Everybody has fear. The difference is that they do not allow them to be paralyzed by it. They choose to sit and they go forward. And so recognizing that if everybody has fear, then fear must not be the issue. Right. And so coming back down to it, I wanted to say that really, and this is from the book Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. Great book. It's one of my favorites on fear. She says that really at the root of it is our belief that we can handle it. And so if you can believe that you can handle it, you can do anything. And remembering that there is somebody who's literally praying for your help that is 1 or 2 steps behind where you are. I oftentimes will forget even just our conversation. I'm like, holy shit. Like, I've learned so much in the last year and a half since I wrote that book that I'm already like, I don't know if I even relate as much as I did because I'm already forgotten how much I've learned. So if all of us are letting the people that we watch on social media or, watching Michelle, being amazing is intimidating, remember that Michelle in her expansion is not going to remember and relate to the people back here as well as she did when she was just a couple steps, above that. And so remember that your exact position, what you know right now, your experience is perfectly perfect for the person 1 or 2 steps behind you. Own that.
Exactly. And you are so amazing. I love this conversation. You're a beautiful soul. And I want to kind of put this back up here for all the readers because this book is an amazing book about getting out of the way. And you're trying, the whole point is get out of God's way so he can reveal your greatness in your life so that you can actually live this abundant, beautiful life and experience it the way that it was meant to experience it. So I really want to thank you so much for joining us today. And do you have any last words or do you have any kind of last advice? I know you've given a lot of advice here today, but do you have any last things you want to kind of tally up on?
I wanted to say right now that you guys you're loved. You're loved exactly where you are. And I hope that you can feel that. That's quantum physics. You feeling that right now is me expressing my entangled electrons with yours. Okay. And I want you to recognize that we always have a choice, that you get to choose right now in this exact moment, whether or not you're going to be a victim to what happened to you, or if you're going to be a victor over it. Every single moment is perfectly perfect, designed for your best good. And I cannot wait to hear what happens when you decide to choose to own it, to show up in your best, and to hear, well done, good, faithful servant. So thank you so much, Michelle, for having me. And
thank you.
I'm so grateful. Yeah.
So let's do this again. This was really amazing. And I will thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Yes, you are so welcome. And I'll make sure that Michelle has the link to the free workbook that you have that comes with my book. And then I also have a gift. Michelle, is that okay if I offer a gift to everybody?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So one of the things that I normally charge for, but I kind of reserve these special moments for people like Michelle who are my friends. But I am using this amazing software that allows people to get a prescription of music that is going to balance out your outer range emotions. It can pick up on your subconscious blocks through a 10-second analysis of your voice. If that is something that you would love to see and experience for yourself, we will make sure that have the link in the show notes for that. I normally charge for it, but that is my gift for you guys so that you can step
Oh,
up
wow.
into
That is
the
so amazing.
beautiful life that you want. So I'll make sure to have that in there.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, and we will talk soon. Bye.